Good evening to each and every one of you. Thank you for coming to this information session. We certainly welcome each of you. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Reverend Ron Harper if he will come and do an invocation for us. You can use the podium right there. Make sure it's on for him.
Amen. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for today. We ask that you be with us, lead us, and guide us on this evening, Father God. Lord, we ask that you just come with unity in all of our hearts, Father God. We ask that you allow us to do what your word says, that we be quick to listen, slow to anger, and slow to speak. Lord, I ask that you rain down relevant questions and relevant answers, Father God. Lord, I ask that you help us all remember that we are all a community, and that we are all Liberty County proud. Lord, we ask that you let us exhibit that principle of wisdom, Father God, and let us get wisdom. But in all our getting, Father God, let us remember to get an understanding and leave out of here, Father God, still recognizing and understanding that we are all neighbors. For it's in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen, amen, and amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend. I'm Al Williams. I'm chairman of Liberty County Development Authority and state representative. I'm going to start by asking if we can start on the far end and would each person introduce themselves, and we'll go all the way around to the end. Thank you.
There's a switch.
Here we go. Hi, I'm Chris Stovall. I'm Senior Environmental Leader at Thomas & Hutton Engineering. We are the engineering firm designing the new treatment facility.
I'm Phil Odom. I'm the chair of the Liberty Consolidated Planning Commission. Liberty County has been my home place of operation for the last 75 years.
Evening, I'm Kelly Davis. I'm the attorney for the Industrial Authority.
Luke Moses. I'm an attorney and a member of the board, and I have many in-laws who live on the Liberty County coast.
Marcus Sack, Liberty County Development Authority board member.
Bryn Grant, Liberty County Development Authority.
I'm Brooke Carney. I'm with University of Georgia, and I'm the facilitator here tonight.
Hi, I'm Mark Creasy. I'm with the University of Georgia as well.
Donald Levitt, Liberty County native, chairman of Liberty County Board of Commissioners, and by virtue of that position, I also serve on the Liberty County Development Authority.
Marion Stevens, District 1 Commissioner.
Good evening, Timmy Blunt, District 4 County Commissioner.
All right, thank each of you. I'm going to ask that as we come this evening, just a couple of housekeeping measures. The restrooms are on the end of the hall and to your right. Those will be the restrooms, and if there's need for water, there's plenty of water right on this floor near the end as you walk out the door, and some snacks also. We would like to say that this evening is an information sharing period. We certainly appreciate everyone coming. Brooke is going to facilitate, but we certainly want to remind each and every one of you, we're all welcome, and we're going to respect each other. We would ask if someone's speaking that you let them finish whatever it is they're saying, that you be respectful of others, and we will certainly have a good evening this evening. And as Brooke is trying to help, I hope never, ever anymore this evening to use this gavel. and I'll take it home and say this is the least it's ever been used. So let's make it that kind of meeting, and we again welcome each and every one of you. Brooke, you go right ahead.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for being here tonight. Again, my name is Brooke Carney, and I'm going to be your facilitator tonight. My focus as your facilitator is to ensure we have a smooth process that goes through our agenda and reaches the objectives of the hosts of the meeting. And those are to share a project update, to facilitate a Q&A panel with some of the experts and project team members, and then to receive public comment. And so we'll go through all of that agenda in a little bit more detail. But I just want to let you know why I'm here facilitating this discussion. So I work for the University of Georgia with Mark for the Marine Extension and Georgia Sea Grant program. And we focus on the conservation and responsible use of Georgia's coastal and marine resources, right? Our aim is to have a clean environment, to have resilient communities, and to have a strong and sustainable economy. We do that through a variety of ways to include research and education, but we also do it through public engagement. And sometimes when coastal issues get complex, we will help facilitate, right? I don't have a stake in the outcome of this project. I could be sitting at home on my couch and still get my salary from UGA, but I came here to be with y'all. I live in Bryan County. My wastewater is treated in my neighborhood, and then it goes out to the Ogeechee River. I had to look that up before I came here tonight, just so I knew. As Mr. Williams said, tonight is an optional public information exchange. It's not a part of any formal permit process. It's not a required public hearing. It's a public engagement moment, right? The public engagement and the conversation will and should continue after tonight. So I just want to make sure everybody recognizes that while we will exchange information and opinions tonight, nothing is part of a formal permit process or any imminent decision. So we're all here because we love Georgia's coast, right? I'm from Georgia. I lived away for many years, and good grief, I am so happy to be back in this beautiful, beautiful, special place. I enjoy Georgia's coastal waters almost every weekend as much as I can, and we are all here because of that shared love, right? We also want to see our region thrive, and we are all neighbors. And so, as Mr. Williams said, I hope that we can all treat each other with civility and with respect tonight, and we can just go through the agenda as it's planned, right? So in just a second, I am going to turn the mic over to our project team. So they're going to give an overview of what they've been working on from their perspective. If you have a question during that presentation, there were index cards that should have been provided as folks walked in. Okay, I see some. If you want one but don't have one, please raise your hand and somebody will bring you one. And I say that because after the project team gives their update, I'm going to organize those questions and make sure we don't ask the same thing 10 times while our subject matter experts give their introductions, and then I'll facilitate a Q&A session with all the folks up here using your questions, okay? Once we finish with that, we will do a public comment period. So there will be 2-minute intervals for people to come to the podium and just give your public statement. If you want to do that, you should have signed up to do so just outside of these doors. And so we're going to go in the order of people's names that are on that list, okay? I don't know how our list is comparing to the time we have, but we will figure that out as it goes along. Okay. One other thing to note is that there is a court reporter on site. If you want to give a public comment and for some reason you don't want to or cannot come up to the podium, you are welcome to meet with that court reporter. And I think that's all.
No, here you go. Oh,
You stole my pen.
you finally noticed.
I got another one.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stand in front of you guys. Sorry about that. Okay. Hello. My name is Bryn Grant, and I am the Liberty County Development Authority CEO. I joined the Liberty County Development Authority just over 2 years ago after having served for 4.5 years at the United Way of the Coastal Empire through COVID. And before that, I was with the Savannah Economic Development Authority for almost 20 years. It was a dream of mine to come back to my hometown where I was born and where I was raised and where I grew up and loved the people and the place, and step into work that I hoped would help to elevate the standard of living, elevate the quality of life, and create opportunities for people. So I'm going to start with a little bit about, it's not working? I got it. Thank you. Okay. So as we started working on our path for economic development in Liberty County, one thing became very, very clear. We don't have the infrastructure we need to advance our economic development plans. And the Liberty County Development Authority, as we began to revive a project that had at once been part of the planning about almost 16, 17 years ago, we began to revive that vision. We immediately started communicating as quickly as we could with our community. We hosted meetings and invited our media friends, Robin with the Current and Pat with the Coastal Courier, to have meetings with us so that we could share what our intentions were and begin the conversation with our community and everybody that would have a stake in this. We reached out to Ogeechee River Keepers. We reached out to 100 Miles. We met with our elected officials throughout our county. We even proactively asked for a meeting with the Bryan County leadership to share what we were trying to do because we so desperately needed basic infrastructure for growth. So we have been posting information on our website. We've issued press releases. We've drafted editorials. We've had one-on-one meetings. We've had group meetings. And still somehow there are people we have not yet had an opportunity to speak with. So we are eager and grateful for the opportunity to tell you what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. I share this quote because it's one of my favorites. I presented at the Liberty County countywide meeting in September before this project was really even getting up and going in any earnest way, just to talk about the Liberty County Development Authority's work and thinking in general. We are not committed to being right. We are committed to getting it right. And that is partly why we have been trying to have all of these conversations, listening to different ideas and incorporating those ideas or exploring those ideas to the best of our ability throughout this process since reviving the project. So why does Liberty County need a wastewater system? The economy and the environment, both. So our mission, just in case you don't know, our mission at the Liberty County Development Authority is to improve the standard of living in our community and to diversify the tax base. We do that by attracting businesses and helping to create jobs, and that has been our focus. Infrastructure is absolutely fundamental to being able to achieve any of that. We want to be a place where our grandchildren and our children can stay or come back. I grew up here. I graduated from Bradwell in 1987, and I left. It was a thrill for me to be able to come back, but I want to create that opportunity for others. So to give you a little perspective economically, we use ALICE data. After having been with the United Way for 4.5 years, one of the things we did was invest in data that would allow us to understand financial hardship beyond poverty. Poverty is so low, it's about, in our county, about 15% higher than the state average. But to really understand people who are working hard but can't make ends meet, we needed another tool, and that tool was ALICE. Asset limited, income constrained, but employed. Those are people who are working hard and still can't make ends meet. And 54% of the Liberty County population is considered ALICE or below. And you can imagine what that does to a community. You have poorer outcomes in education, in health care, and you have maybe higher crime. All of those things are created in an environment where people are struggling to put food on the table, pay their rent, and pay for medication or whatever it is that they're facing. It is our job at the Liberty County Development Authority to try to plan and work a plan for a future that brings opportunity to the people who live here. I'll share that The median household income, 2023 was the last data available for the ALICE data, so it has increased. It has increased here and around our region. But the median household income in Liberty County was a little over $58,000 a year. State average, 74. Bryan County, 94. Significant difference, significant success in economic development. Definitely strong infrastructure. So 39% of our population in Liberty County is considered ALICE, 15% is in poverty, so for that total of 54%. And unfortunately, you can look at the data that was presented in the current about the per capita income across our state of Georgia, and Liberty County in the 1980 was in the top half of the nation. Top half of the nation for per capita income, and today we're in the bottom quartile. It is our mission and it is our work to try to make that different. So we began with a strategic plan. We engaged over 400 people in our community through one-on-one interviews, focus groups, surveys. We gathered that input and we worked with a professional advisory group that has expertise working around the country in economic development, and we created a Link Liberty strategic plan. A complement to that was our incentives guidelines policy. The incentives guidelines policy is the first that the Liberty County Development Authority has ever had in my awareness. And it was one that everyone could contribute to. Our board contributed to it, our community contributed to it, which was about targeting the kinds of businesses and the kinds of jobs that we hope to attract to our community. So you should see changes over time. We believe that the time is now, thanks in large part to the success of our neighbors in Bryan County. The region is growing, and yes, there are enormous challenges that come with that kind of success. We recognize that, we're witnessing that with you. There are big challenges related to having landed the biggest economic development project in the history of the state of Georgia. But the economic ripple effects around our region we are all trying to respond to. And it isn't just Hyundai. It isn't just the Hyundai announcement. It's the growth of the port, double digits over the last 20 years. It's the growth of the Port of Brunswick from the south. It's the Savannah tourism industry growing by millions. And it's I-95, a coastal highway, a coastal interstate with 70,000 plus vehicles every single day. And as everyone who's come down I-95 from the north into Liberty County recognizes the dramatic changes at Belfast Keller in particular. It wasn't even an interchange when our project was first being conceived many years ago. It wasn't even an interchange, and now it's all the things that you see. And to their credit, our friends in Bryan County, they've been able to lower taxes. They have been successfully able to lower taxes year after year. So it is a model. And one of the things you see here on this statement is growth should not be managed with the most should not be managed with the most environmentally responsible wastewater solution. My point there is this. The area is growing, and we want to provide the very most responsible, most thoughtfully engineered and solution that we possibly can for the environment, because growth is coming. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be thoughtful about what growth you want and what growth you allow. We don't think so either, which was why we did our strategic plan. It was why we did the incentives that we did, because while we do want to grow and we do want to attract quality jobs, quality industry, quality commercial development, we want to do it thoughtfully. And we know we can only do it in partnership with all our other municipalities and our county government that are determining those standards. So investing in a modern sewer system is just very fundamental. And I think those of you who are from Bryan County recognize that because you've invested wisely in infrastructure. It protects our community's interests by allowing for managed growth rather than sprawl. It protects our health. It protects our water resources and our environment by producing clean water that can be put back into our environment. So the reason it's called a water reclamation facility is because it literally reclaims fresh water for use in the environment. It is not for drinking water. Though there are places in the world where that is happening, our EPD in the state of Georgia does not permit drinking water from wastewater. But we do permit the cleanest possible treated water we can to put back into the environment in ways like irrigation, cooling, maybe even fire suppression. So it limits the proliferation. The other additional thing about centralized sewer is that it limits the proliferation of septic tanks. Septic tanks have served us well, and certainly they do where there's lots of space and lots of land. But in a growing area, that concentration is actually a negative factor for health and the environment. How is wastewater currently managed in our area? Every dot here on this map represents an existing municipal or industrial wastewater treatment center system. I had no idea. I had never had to think about wastewater in my life before coming to this job and working on trying to create infrastructure that would allow us to attract business and support our environment and our health in a healthy way. But there are 76 existing municipal and industrial wastewater treatment systems on that coast. And currently, we all know about septic. I have a septic system. It's the way that we have been able to live in this beautiful place for a very long time. But there's also the publicly managed treatment systems that are monitored and regulated more strictly than septic tanks, which tend not to be. You have to just rely on the good management of your homeowners. So examples of wastewater systems in our area: Laurel View Basin currently has 5 existing community wastewater treatment facilities within 1,000 feet of the river, and approximately 800 private septic systems on the marsh. And the North Newport River Basin, which has become an option, something we have been added to our consideration over the last month, has 5 existing municipal and industrial wastewater treatment facilities and 100 septic systems on the marsh. That is data we have. Our situation is that we have capacity constraints that limit our ability to address the growing needs of our community from an economic development perspective, but just separate from that, if I left tomorrow, there are going to be people moving here, and it is not the wisest, best environmental solution to allow for dense neighborhood development or development with septic systems continuously on our coast. So the Liberty County Development Authority currently contracts with the city of Midway for our wastewater treatment. We have an industrial park, not a heavy industrial park, but an industrial park, Tradeport East, right at the interchange of Exit 76 and I-95. It is almost built out, but we have several good sites still available that we hope to attract more high-quality jobs like Sohan. We're very excited that Liberty County was able to attract a Tier 1 supplier of the Hyundai plant that is currently projected to create 180 jobs and may go over 225 in the next 3 years. Good jobs, clean jobs. And the other thing about that is not high water using jobs, which is another focus of ours if you read our plans. One of the things we're doing when we are talking to companies and the state comes to us and says, here's a company that's interested in the land you have, we say, what kind of water do they need? Immediately, that's our first question. We really don't want, if we can help it, balancing all of the factors, we don't want huge water users because we understand the capacity issues in our region. And in this particular case, with wastewater treatment, Midway And I don't know if there's any Midway leadership here. There, yep. I saw you when you came in, and here I am saying that. They're bumping their head on the capacity limits in Midway. And there are lots of pressures and lots of requests for service that they have not been able to reply to or respond to because they cannot promise that capacity. We have some of that capacity, and we are also bumping our head on it. It will not allow us to attract the kinds of businesses we need to with the limited amount of capacity that we have. These are the potable service area. I'm going to have to go real fast now because I got too slow. I just saw my 5-minute mark. This is potable water. This is service delivery areas as were determined by the various municipalities and the county as part of the Coastal Georgia Regional Water Planning. Those were things that they agreed to. The experts and water professionals and wastewater professionals in our county agreed to these service areas. The rusty color red is the Liberty County Development Authority service area. It's connected to Tradeport East, which is why it's there. You can see Riceboro here, the county's potable water service area, Hinesville, and Walterville. So it gives you a sense. While we are, in our work, we are focused on industrial recruitment and the kind of industry that will create the kind of jobs we want, we are responsible as a water and sewer utility to deliver service to those who are coming to our community asking for service. How can we create a modern wastewater system for Liberty County? We have evaluated many different options, everything from land. We're still evaluating some options relative to these things because we get comments from folks who have been contributing to the conversation, and we go explore them and determine whether something works or it doesn't work. Is it feasible or is it not? And what we do know is that membrane bioreactor is the best available technology for a water reclamation facility today. So some of the factors that when we say we want to get it right, what does that mean? What is some of the questions we're trying to answer constantly? What is the best option to protect the local environment and coastal waterways? I grew up in these waters. I swam my entire life and water skied my entire life in those rivers. So I love them too. How can the scarce water resources in the area be conserved? Again, water reclamation is science's answer to helping put fresh water back into the environment. What technology is proven to work locally? What method will the Georgia Environmental Protection Division consider most viable? Does it align with the state's Coastal Georgia Regional Water Plan? Those are the kinds of questions we're asking all the time. What we've determined, what the experts have determined is that MBR technology provides a high level of water quality protection for our community. You can see this is an example of the Richmond Hill. This is actual photo of the Richmond Hill facility. And it's an award-winning facility in their field. The site in Tradeport East is special in that, number one, years ago, the space was invested in. There's actually already a building there that was supposed to be the operations center. There's already purple pipe that's been invested in there. And of course, there's the industry we're responsible to. And we directed wastewater a different way when the plant did not get built when originally planned. Doesn't always work well, and we have some challenges for maintaining and operating. It was designed for a wastewater treatment facility to be in there. But it is a very small footprint. The intention is to build for 1 MGD to start, estimating that it would take 20 to 30 years to ever get to a 3 MGD demand, which is 3 million gallons a day. But what's unique about this site is the high elevation. It's above the 500-year floodplain, really unique in our coastal community. And Category 5 storm surge models don't touch it. So everything is above ground. The purple pipe for reuse is already installed, as I mentioned, and more will be installed as we move forward because reuse is a very high priority. We are looking at every option for possible reuse, and we have heard so many amazing ideas. One for sure will be irrigation. Not just irrigation in Tradeport East, but irrigation in the Laurel View development that's planned along I-95 at exit 76. And we're having conversations with many others about that potential. How can we reuse as much of this water as possible so that we can lessen the amount that would ultimately have to go into a river? The truth is, however, that no matter how much we reuse, the EPD requires that we have a water body permitted to accept that maximum capacity. So even though we don't think we'll need 3 MGD and won't even be built for it for 20 or 30 years, and even though we will reuse as much as we possibly can in as many ways as we possibly can, that permit ultimately, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that permit ultimately has to be for the maximum potential amount at any given time. So that's why that number is what that number is. So we are, and one of the plans of the project, and from what I gather, most projects are to bore the pipe and diffuser up under the river, and do so because that deepest part of the river at the bend is, in any river, whichever one, is the fastest flow. It's the fastest flow, so it creates a mixing, the highest mixing potential, which is what scientists recommend. Oh my gosh, and it's safer for wildlife.
I'll give you a minute or two.
So I know. Okay, I'll be very quick. You all know, especially those of you who have been very, very involved in the project, know that there was a study by EPD in 2009. And in February, when we were reviving the project, we went to visit with them and we said, hey, we're reviving this project. What's next? And they said that the results of a study today would not have different results. I know there are people here who do not believe that that's the case, and we have been having conversations about what that means. But we are not the EPD. They are them, and that's what they told us. So we are looking at and have been having conversations about what additional kinds of things we might do to complement, supplement, and help us to better understand the environment. But we have been exploring, and we are talking to Ogeechee River keepers specifically because we believe that all of us trust that what they want is to only figure out and communicate and understand what's true, and that's all we want to. So when an MBR plant reaches, an MBR plant reaches maximum capacity, again, estimated to be 20 to 30 years, the treated fresh water from the plant will equal 1.16% of additional fresh water. And we had a meeting where there was lots of conversation about, well, there is no way on earth that 258 million gallons a day of fresh water on average under normal circumstances is entering that tidal basin. I reached back out to EPD and asked the question because I said, I'm getting lots of questions. People are confused about this, wonder about this. Can you confirm it? 258 million gallons a day are entering. All the water coming from anywhere higher than us is finding its way to the ocean. That's what it does, right? So that is, they tried to explain that to me, and that's what I understand. 3 MGD, again, 20 to 30 years, and hopefully never, because we will be reusing that water as often as possible. 3 MGD equals 1.16. The other thing is that me? The other thing I'll point out is the volume of water in that river. None of this would I have understood before. If you said 3 MGD to me, I'd have said, oh my God, that is a lot of water. Wow. Until I had to learn, because it's my job to learn, I had to learn that 4 billion gallons per hour of water is in that bend of the river going on the outtide. So it really is a profound thing to try and understand the volume of water we're talking about. I never would have understood it before. I now have a better sense, having learned from people who know more than me. This is only to share that the difference in water quality related to septic, conventional treatment, and MBR. You can look at that for yourself. Pharmaceuticals, 90 to 99%, not 100. Hormones, 90 to 95, not 100, but far better than any other option we have. The LCDA has made waste load allocation requests to the Georgia Environmental Protection Division for the new North Newport. It was believed when this project started almost 20 years ago that there was no way, with the existing discharges in the North Newport, there was no way that it would be a consideration for the new North Newport. As we've been having conversations throughout our community over the last few months, that question was raised, especially as it relates to the changes and the transitions happening with industrial treatment in that area. And the question was raised, and we said, we don't know. And the only way we'll know if that's an option is to submit a waste load allocation request to Georgia EPD, which we have done. That can take 6 to 9 months, as we understand it. There's no way to know when we'll hear from them, but as soon as we hear from them, we will know if that's a viable option or not, and then we would begin the same kind of in-depth work and studies to understand both options before our board would make a decision. I want to point out that this exists. I didn't know it existed because I didn't have to care about wastewater before this. I flushed. I didn't have to care. Now I have to care, and I care about our community, and I care about our environment, and I care about our economics. And what I learned was that in this plan, coastal rivers, estuaries, and tidal marshes depend on adequate freshwater inflows to maintain salinity balance, dissolved oxygen levels, nutrient cycling, and overall ecosystem function. And the plan further acknowledges that the estuarine, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, conditions are influenced not only by natural hydrology, but also by regulated municipal and industrial withdrawals and return flows. You can continue to read that, and we have packets for you if you want to take any information. We also have information posted on our website in chronological order from the beginning of our project to today. But ultimately, the plan was updated, and it reaffirms the state's recognition of treated municipal and industrial discharges as important for managed freshwater inputs. Managed is the important part of that. It requires testing and management and monitoring on a daily basis. We have visited other plants, and they require very strict permitting, very strict requirements for monitoring. There isn't a day that goes by that the water's not tested. Regional growth is happening. It demands modern sewer in Liberty County, and I just hope you understand and believe that we want the very best solution too. And this is how we'll end. We must all flush or drain wastewater somewhere. Wastewater treatment systems are necessary, but no wastewater treatment is perfect. And there are best technologies and processes that exist today. And since everything that isn't removed from that wastewater, everything that isn't removed, ultimately makes its way to downstream waters and the coast, the most responsible approach is to remove as much as we can from that water as possible. And MBR releases the lowest levels achievable with a best practice technology. So finally, we are still in the early stages. As you can tell, we've got lots of things to wait on, in fact. And we are still doing a lot of work and conversations and studies. We are continuing to explore the best ideas. We're having community conversations. We're conducting more analysis, evaluating funding, and of course, there is ultimately, there will be state environmental permitting requirements related to it. But there is a new website, cleanwaterbrightfuture.com, for any information, or the Liberty County Development Authority. I'm over.
Okay, I feel like we should clap. That was a lot of information.
Oh.
Me?
Thank you.
Testing, testing. Okay, thank you for all of that information. I feel like I just finished a college lecture. If you have a question on a card that you would like to hand up, many of us will come around right now and get them. Thank you, ma'am. Oh, look at you, how organized. We got gluing happening. Anybody else have a question? Excuse me.
Everybody take up the cards.
Yes, we need another card. Oh, are you sharing a card? Here we go. Here, she's giving you hers. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Thank y'all. All right, I hope I can read everybody's chicken scratch. Okay, so what we're going to do while I'm trying to make sure I can read all the questions is let some of the subject matter experts say hello, a little bit about themselves. We have Chris, who is on the project team as the lead engineer. We have Phil, who knows more about water and the specific stats of coastal Georgia than I can ever dream of knowing. And we have Mark, who is an expert in water systems and wastewater, and my boss. Okay, I will turn it over to y'all. Anybody want to go first?
I'll be short with mine again. Chris Stovall with Thomas and Hutton Engineering. Been a coastal resident for over 30 years at this point. I moved up closer to home, up to my original family, helping it up there. But I still own a home in Chatham County. So local, and have always enjoyed the area and really find it very important to me as well. As we've talked about with the treatment plant, this is a highest level of treatment that we typically do on a wastewater plant. We don't call it a wastewater plant anymore. It is a water reclamation facility, as Brenda said. She did a fantastic job today. So she was only 10 minutes over. I would have been 40 minutes over. But again, we're here to answer any questions for you. I'm going to turn it over to Phil. I know he's got a few things to say.
My stewardship in the water began decades ago doing compliance with corporate America, erosion and sediment control, building interstates, supplying lubricating oil to ocean-going ships, and even working the waters of St. Catherine's Estuary as a commercial fisherman. I've spent time on those waters all my life. First trip was out there in 1959 when my grandfather carried me fishing. But a little over 25 years ago, I offered my expertise in environmental compliance to the environmental advocacy community by serving on the first board of directors of the Canoochee Riverkeeper, which became the Ogeechee Riverkeeper, an organization that is operation today. And I've been associated with that for the last 26 years. Damon, our executive director, could not make it tonight. He was turned away at the door because the room is full. So he did text me to tell me he'd be watching the live stream. So, hey, Damon. But I implore all concerned citizens to consider joining the Riverkeeper, to become educated, learn, take the University of Georgia Master Naturalist Water Planning course to where you can understand how the estuary works. Become an EPD certified water tester so that once you're certified, adopt a waterway of your love for and assist with the Riverkeeper in supplying EPD with the data. I am also Liberty County's representative to the EPD State Water Planning Council. Since 2009, there have been 28 citizens in the 9 counties on the coast who have worked diligently to create 86 of these best management practices. Some of them you heard tonight. The plan is available to go online. Just take your favorite search engine and look at Coastal Georgia Water Planning Council. And I want to emphasize that from EPD's perspective, the proposed wastewater treatment application for the St. Catherine's Estuary for either the Laurel View River or the North Newport River will be reviewed and issued under the authority of the Georgia Water Quality Control Act, a law of the state of Georgia, which is designed to safeguard public health protect aquatic life, preserve environmental quality, and each permit is grounded in sound science and administered in a clear and legal regulatory framework. Before any permit is finalized, Georgia EPD will open a 30-day public comment period during which any individual or organization may submit written, I quote, written comment in response to the official notice of publication. So you'll have a chance to speak your mind with the state regulators when the state opens it up. All right, Brooke, it's back to you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Mark Reese. A little bit of my background. I don't really know what I'm doing here, but they asked me to show up and answer questions, and so that's what I'm trying to do. I do have a strong background in water resources. I graduated with an engineering degree from UGA, and my first job out of school was designing wastewater treatment plants. I did like my third one, and no offense, Chris, but I decided designing wastewater treatment plants wasn't for me, and I went back to school and got a master's degree and a PhD in engineering at Purdue. And my first job out of school was doing water resources management for the University of Georgia. So the first 18 years of my career, I worked for the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences and worked all over the state, everything from animal waste treatment, dealing with poultry litter and dairy farms, to pesticides and row crops, to stormwater management with city and county governments. Wastewater treatment was definitely part of that with city county government. So I've worked on really about all the water issues you can. We've also had a number of students doing projects all over Georgia looking at primarily water quality, but also water quantity issues. About 12 years ago, I took over as director for Marine Extension and Georgia Sea Grant. And Brooke mentioned our mission, environmental, social, and economic health of Georgia's coast, is always top on my mind. We fund research projects. We do a lot of education. Come visit our aquarium on Skidaway Island. We've got people down in Brunswick that do all sorts of outreach. And a lot of that is also focused on water. As director for Sea Grant, I often get asked, what is the biggest problem facing Georgia's coast right now? And up until about 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would have said it's flooding issues, coastal resilience, dealing with sea level rise, because almost all the communities in coastal Georgia are having problems with flooding. But with all the recent growth we've seen in Georgia, it's more about resilience from can we do this right? There's nothing that really impacts water quality more than people. People, we're the problem when it comes to water. And if you look at any of the studies that have tried to correlate water quality to things, number of people is the second leading indicator. Impervious surfaces, causing more runoff and having more concrete in a basin, which is also because of people, is the number one indicator of what you can look for in a watershed to determine the health of that watershed. And I don't think there's any way possible we're going to stop growth in coastal Georgia. So the focus of my team, and we're trying to develop a coordinated response, is trying to work with communities on smart planning, on trying to grow sustainably, because we can do this right or we can do it wrong. We've done a lot of work with septic tanks. I don't want to get into that because it takes too much time, but they're not the solution. We've got to get more wastewater treatment plant capacity. I'm not here to comment at all on this particular project, and I really intentionally have not studied either of these watersheds and don't know the details there. But I can tell you that focusing on reclamation and using this type technology is what EPD is requiring in all the coastal basins, and it's what I hope to see all of our future wastewater growth on. So it's a good technology and a good strategy. And with that, I think I will yield the rest of my time to questions.
Okay. Amazingly, on time? Back on schedule. We're doing okay. Doing okay. All right. Okay. Y'all got a lot of questions. So we are going to some of these I think can be answered very quickly. Others require a lengthy written response, right? Some of them are specific about scientific data and things like that. So we'll do our best to get through as many as possible. I've tried to categorize them into quick answers, sort of questions about systems and discharge, and then we go into the science, and then it goes more into comments, okay? So I've saved the comments for last since these are supposed to be questions. Okay, first one is a really quick answer. Bryn, is it a conflict of interest for Thomas and Hutton to be on the LCDA board?
Thomas and Hutton is not on the LCDA board.
Has never been.
Speak into the mic so people online can hear you.
Thomas and Hutton is not on the LCDA board.
Okay. Mr. Williams, concise. Is this already a done deal? Is this meeting a formality, after which our questions and say will not have mattered anyway?
I think that the first statement I made was this was fact-finding. Nothing is a done deal. We're at the very beginning, and we're asking questions. Believe me, if it was a done deal, you wouldn't be here. It is not a done deal.
Very early planning stages. Okay. Somebody on the project team, how much of the need to construct this facility is the direct result of industrial and commercial development versus residential development?
At this point, you can, I guess
Just
I can.
decide quickly.
I'll take it for now, and we can take it around. At this point, there is approximately 50,000 gallons of industrial water, meaning coming from industrial clients, customers. That is not processed water. This is all just basically the domestic uses, bathrooms, kitchens, things like that, out in the park. So from that standpoint, it's a very small amount of what we're looking at. The first phase of development is planned around Laurel View development, which is going to be primarily residential, but does have commercial portions, as well as a small industrial potential warehouse or something like that in there. So it is a very small amount at this point. We do want to build this facility, though, so that there is the ability to treat industrial users. And I may turn over to Brent if you've got some additional to say on that.
Can you read that question one more time?
Yeah. How much of the need to construct this facility is the direct result of industrial and commercial development versus residential?
At some point, our leadership in this county provided or assigned water and sewer service delivery area to the Liberty County Development Authority as the map you saw on the screen earlier, and we're happy to provide that for anybody who wants to see it again. And when landowners and developers who own that land who would like to do something with it are approaching the utility provider saying, I need capacity, and when we are hosting prospects that are interested in locating facilities from an industrial perspective, we have to be able to provide an answer. And so I don't know that I could give you percentages for an answer, how much is industrial versus how much is this. We have a certain area. We own some sites in that area, and our focus is industrial. Our focus is the right kind of industrial. We've said no to a lot of them. But but also in that area are residential developers that are developing residences and are doing it with commercial interest as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that industrial clients are really hard to estimate for when you don't know who the client is. So Chris told you what is there now. But tomorrow, an industrial client could come in that's a really heavy user that we have no idea about that could completely change the makeup or percentage if we were to give you one. So I think we've answered the question with what we know, but projecting it in the future is very difficult.
So how will the cost of the project facility, I'm going to rephrase this a little bit, be sort of proportionally covered through the community? Like, is this going to be an additional cost to community members? How will it be paid for?
No, this system, like most wastewater treatment systems, is going to be funded, or at least the capital components of this project will be funded with connection fees. They're known by different names, but tonight we'll refer to them as connection fees. So, for example, every time an industry or developer will connect to the system, they would pay a proportionate share based on ERUs, which is kind of the flow, average flow of water and wastewater for that particular project. And it's according to a schedule that the authority will adopt and publish. So the intention is that all our capital costs, which right now are estimated to be $32.5 million, will be paid for by the users, by connection fees, primarily for developers. We have a very unique opportunity now. As I think we mentioned, the authority's primary motivation is to serve our industrial and commercial clients and diversify our tax base and provide the opportunity that our children and grandchildren will need. But just as importantly, with respect to residential development, we have a partner and a developer that we've recently entered into a capacity reservation agreement with. And if that capacity reservation agreement is performed, that one contract would help subsidize in large part, if not entirely, the debt service on this one project. So it's by leveraging those residential opportunities that we'll be able to serve our industrial and commercial needs and meet the objectives of the industrial authority. So both are very important, and I think we provide a very, very important and unique opportunity now to partner with this and other developers so that we can fund this project and provide the sort of opportunity that our county needs.
Okay, I'm going to move us on. There might be related questions that y'all can answer. Okay. I'm going to ask, there's a couple of questions about sort of the location and who it serves and who's affected if it's not serving them. So I'll ask these two first. Will this facility support only East End growth? And somewhat related, I think, how would this project affect cities like Waltherville? Did I say that right? Waltherville. Sorry, I'm not from Liberty. I'm not from Liberty County. Waltherville, who have their own water. Is that an engineer question?
Yeah, so repeat it again real quick.
I'm sorry, I got bogged down in the mispronunciation. Will this facility support only East End growth? And related, how will it affect cities like Waltherville?
Yeah. So
Waltherville, like it's Waltherville, who have their own wastewater system, or who have their own
water system. So I'll start, and I think Marcus can get in. We've been planning through the Water Planning Commission with Liberty County and on the Technical Advisory Committee on how to serve the area, do it on a regional basis where we are trying to make sure it's not just the Liberty County Development Authority that's served. There are opportunities for basically a northeastern area that can be served by this facility. And so Hinesville already has a wastewater system that serves Waltherville. I can't even say it now.
You hang out here more than I do.
I do. So they are actually served by the city of Hinesville in terms of their treatment of their wastewater. So
let me add something.
Yep.
In the state plan, it calls for intergovernmental agreements to service supply. And Liberty County for decades has already done that. The city of Hinesville, Flemington, Allenhurst, and Waltherville already share a wastewater treatment facility. And it discharges into the Taylor Creek, which goes into the Canoochee, which goes into the Ogeechee, which goes into the ocean eventually. But that intersharing, and on a state level, our regulators are looking at a more centralized approach, not an individual approach. So what Hinesville and the communities have done are already in a centralized approach. So I hope that answers that question.
Bill, you nailed it. Whether we're talking about water or wastewater, this region is going to have to figure out ways to work together and get creative to find solutions to our problems. That's something that's being done right now on a monthly basis for our region, meeting with EPD and talking about our water resources and trying to come up with those creative solutions. I think the Liberty County Development Authority's vision for this project is that it's not just something for LCDA, but something for the entirety of the county that'll be performed on a regional basis for the betterment of our county and the environment that surrounds it. Hopefully one day we can branch out in some of the more rural areas and get more septic tanks and drain fields off of the coast and into more of a collected system.
That's directly related to what's in it for my city, etc. The indirect is there is not an industry that we have that does not employ people from all over this county and other counties. So the indirect is the better jobs they have, the better your city will do, the better the tax base will be. The industry we bring here will not be for the East End. It will be for everybody that can get a job.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So this one is a resident of Riceboro asking why, after all of the work that the project team has done to date, why North Newport River is being considered as an option. And I'm sorry, I can't read the handwriting. They're just noting that the recent article in the Current is the first time they've heard about it. Bryn, do you want to take that one?
So we revived the project, as I mentioned in my presentation, just in this last year, began proactively having conversations about it to try and communicate, to try and get information, to try and get ideas. That was us. We went to the Current first. We went to the Coastal Courier first. If we haven't yet gotten to you, it is not because we wanted to exclude in any way. We have issued press releases. We have published editorials. We have invited elected officials to meetings, hoping that they would help to share this message and information. We welcome a call, an email, or a conversation in any way. So to my Riceboro people especially, we are planning a date where we can come and have a conversation with you. Also, I mentioned, and I welcome anybody else correcting me, it was believed, right or wrong, it was believed that a discharge to the North Newport was not possible when this project was first conceived. And in our conversations with many people, the conversations we've had for the last several months, it was suggested as an option. Have you considered it? Well, no, because it wasn't believed to be an option. It was not evaluated. We did not ask EPD for a waste load allocation to the North Newport in the past. But if we are sincere about finding the very best option for our county, then it required us to do so. And our board made the decision to delay, to take time, extra time, it's going to take more time, to spend a little more money, not knowing what the outcome of that will be because that authority resides with EPD. But we have decided as a board, and I'll let my board speak to it, that it was a necessary evaluation to have.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that. We've got, passionate groups of people here who have opposed the Laurel View River being a discharge point. And I appreciate their views, and I've heard from some of them who are in this room right now. But I want folks in Riceboro and everyone else in this room to know that, at least for this board member, and I think I speak for the rest of the board when I say this, our analysis of where the discharge point should be will be based on scientific data and what the most environmentally viable discharge point is. And we're going to rely on advice from the EPD and subject matter experts to make that determination if that determination needs to be made. So while I appreciate hearing from members of the community, from Riceboro, folks who live along the Laurel View River, anyone who's a stakeholder in this, I just want everyone to be assured when it comes to this member of the board, and I think this is true for the rest of the board members who are sitting here, our decisions are going to be data-driven, not emotion-driven.
So for the next, I don't know, 20 or so questions, I'm going to bounce back and forth, I think, between more general science questions about understanding the ecosystem and effects on the ecosystem and specific questions about the project and chemicals and things like that. Okay? All right. So, token scientists in the room. Well, let's say, I don't know, we'll see who wants this one. Maybe it's too specific to the project. But how does the facility support natural wetlands, fisheries, and habitats? And then related, does returning purified water alter the river's thermal regime and impact local fish and or fisheries? Now, I know you're a water guy, not a fish guy, so. Anybody else
All right,
want?
I'm gonna have to jump in on that one. Any of y'all been around and remember when artesian wells flowed? Okay? That's when our fishery was at its most vibrant. And that was due to the fact that it had billions of gallons of calcium-enriched fresh water flowing into it. We have over-pumped our groundwater aquifer, and artesian wells no longer flow. That has changed the natural aspect. A discharge of a wastewater treatment plant will increase the fresh water flowing in, and that increases the biodiversity, because an estuary is a body of water that has a free connection to the ocean, whose water is diluted with fresh water, and it is that mixing of those waters that makes the nursery for the over 600 animals and species that we harvest that we can consume. So this wastewater treatment plant is just actually a man-made step in the natural water cycle. We're taking water out of the ground, we're using it, we're cleaning it, we're returning it to the estuary like nature used to do before we overpumped it. So that's the best answer I can give.
I just want to qualify what Phil just said. He said wastewater, but I want to be a little more clear than that. Highly treated wastewater is the aspect of that, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. It doesn't include wastewater from septic tanks or drain fields or lesser treatment systems. It would be from this type of MBR process.
Okay.
And once again, that goes through to the different levels of like an aeration versus septic tank, and this biomembrane reactor is the highest state of the art of treating wastewater to make it as pure as possible, putting it back to its natural state.
One more. Oh, you've got one. You go first.
Well, they had asked about the thermal impacts, and I really don't think there'll be much. This is an outdoor treatment process, and I'd expect it to be fairly close to the same temperature. I mean, maybe because there's 6 billion gallons of ocean water going back and forth, maybe a little bit cooler because the ocean's a little bit cooler than our rivers most of the time, but I don't think that would affect any biota in the river.
One point, just in terms of, we've had several die-offs of Spartina grass, the marsh grasses in 2002. Again, it happened in the 2009 timeframe. As it's been studied over the years, that was due to drought. That was due to higher levels of saltwater concentrations within the estuaries right here. So even this small amount of fresh water, it can actually help in that instance. But that is why we had the die-offs, were because of drought and much higher levels of saltwater concentrations and salinity within the basin.
All right, Chris, keep that mic, because I know you know this by heart. I heard you talk about it earlier today.
For 30 minutes.
No, okay, so I think this was covered in the presentation, but that was rapid fire, Bryn. Okay, how many of the wastewater systems on the Laurel View and North Newport currently dump into each of those rivers? The number on the Laurel View, and then there's the number on the North Newport.
Yeah, so there's 5 in each basin within in the saltwater basins is where we were looking at. The ones in the Laurel View are community systems. They do land apply the wastewater that comes out of them. They are smaller. They are anywhere from a 20 to 30,000 gallon on the low side to 128,000 on the high side. So, but that's about a total of about 400,000 gallons of water going in that is treated, not to the levels we're talking about. And then they are very close to the saltwater marsh where they discharge, where they land apply. On the North Newport River, there's also 5 facilities. One was very large. It is at this time, that's the whole reason it's in a transition period at this point. And we know it most likely will be less in the future, but it is an active permit and it's still in place right now because the facility continues to clean and process what's in the facility now. So it was a 9 million gallon a day facility. But we also have SNF. We also then have 3 land application systems that are larger than any of the ones in the Laurel View. But again, there's 5 in each basin. So, and many more septic tanks that we see directly on the marshfront and riverfront along Bryan County. And it's one of the things we were really trying to do is make sure we don't end up with a proliferation of those by building this plant now before any of the development comes. We have them on centralized sewer instead of on septic tanks.
And I don't mean to cut off any of the questioning by asking that, but that's one of the questions that comes to my mind. We touched on in the presentation how septic tanks, are vis-a-vis the environment versus a centralized wastewater treatment facility. Can you speak a little more to that?
Sure. I mean, it was covered very, very quickly, but septic tanks, especially, and Mark probably knows more than me, he's written many papers over time, but septic tanks are not treating to a very high level, especially when you have them in a dense area. You will start seeing issues with nitrates in your groundwater. You will have higher levels of pathogens in the water. So a system that is failing, a septic tank coming out of the septic tank, the effluent has somewhere in the million number of pathogens, and we'll call them bugs. No, he said not use bugs. Okay, I'm calling them bugs. Coming out of that facility, if it's a 400 gallon per day flow coming from one individual house, if we go back to our permit numbers that we have to meet, that's a million number per 100 milliliters. Our permit is at 4 parts per 100 milliliters. So when you look at a 1 million gallon per day treatment plant, it's the same as a single effluent discharge from a septic tank. Now we do get some treatment through soils and grass uptakes, but there are many systems that are failing already. We know that, and those are going straight into the river. There are many facilities or many septic systems that we know are within 5 feet, 10 feet of the river. Even on a good sandy soil, that's going straight into the river.
So if I can, I want to move us along because that question was about how many wastewater systems were on the, just keeping it real here. I'm not sure what's happening with the mics. Okay, so the next few are about sort of chemicals and treated water coming into the ecosystem and algae growth. Is this me?
I think the other mics might need to be turned off.
Okay, so there's a few here. Sorry, y'all. Okay. So there's a lot on this card, but I think there's a really important question. So I'll just read the whole card. Okay. So are there any studies of MBR systems that have outfall under river bottom in saltwater tidal rivers, the nitrogen and phosphorus deposits will potentially stay stagnant. All this person could find were studies on freshwater rivers and creeks and brackish waters. And they were specifically thinking about algae blooms that are problems in Florida. So we have, might want to clarify somebody, saltwater tidal rivers studies versus freshwater versus brackish versus what these systems are. Anybody?
I'll just do a quick one on that. In terms of that EPD study that's out there, there is a lot of data in that, and just in looking at the PowerPoint. And it shows how well mixed and blended the river is. They ran studies on BOD, on dissolved oxygen, to determine and then run these dye tests and check those concentrations, and saw how well the river blends, especially at this particular bend. So all I can say is that that's probably the primary study right now that we have is showing that it's very well blended at that point.
So following up on that answer, there are two questions about the age of the study. So when will dye tests and water studies be done? We've had 2 hurricanes and a tropical storm since the studies on hand were done in 2009, and related sort of criticism about this being a 20-year-old study. And have the results of these studies been published for review by public experts, et cetera? So EPD's not here, but anybody want to take that?
I'll put my Liz Booth hat on. Keep talking. Somebody else needs to take over. So we go back to that study. There was bathymetry, so surveying the bottom of the river back in 2009 timeframe versus today. We didn't put the pretty slide up. We had a nice colorful slide that shows the bathymetry. I'm an engineer. I've got to have those pretty slides. But it was very similar. So at the bend there, because it is flushed very well in that region and scoured out, the bottom still looks very similar to how it did 15 years ago. Now we know the sandbar moves because that is where things slow down as it comes on the straight channel there. And so you can go back, Google Earth it, and you can see how the sandbar has moved. But at the bend, it has been fairly set in place. One thing with our system, if we're drilling in and putting it in the bottom of the river, and again, this goes to any river we're doing, we do make it flexible that if we have to move it up or down one way or the other, it will be possible to do that. But what we've seen is that we will get better mixing of it if we are putting it underwater. We are going to protect watercraft, water life, and definitely, to me, it's a better way to do it. I know people think we're hiding something. All I can tell you is that this water is going to be mostly reused. So if you want to see it, you can go out there and check an irrigation sprinkler in a green space somewhere. So.
Thank you. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. Are you okay? I don't mean to. How are folks in the back doing? Y'all need to bend some knees? Don't pass out. Okay. Next one is more of a general scientific question. In which journals are data published concerning effects of freshwater effluent flooding into saltwater tidal basins? So this is a general question about studies of freshwater effluent coming into saltwater tidal basins. I think that's to you.
There's a Journal of Coast and Estuaries. There's a Journal of Estuary Management. I think those would probably be the most likely spots. But, I mean, they don't have a ton of papers on wastewater treatment. Usually when in those journals, it's more all the other things impacting estuaries, non-point source pollution in particular. I don't know of any that are wastewater treatment specific.
I did come across some work in the National Estuarine Preserve down in Apalachicola. There was a couple of papers that were written for that particular thing. And the Smithsonian Institute Marine Science Laboratory has a paper about the Indian River Lagoon, those are the only papers that I know of. I don't know of anything that's been done by the Skidaway Oceanography Institute or UGA here in our area, but Florida has a much denser population than we do, and they have a different chemical load than we do. So those are the only papers I know of, and you can find those online and just go to either one of those institutions and look at it up.
Do you recall generally what their findings were?
I'd have to dig that way in my memory bank to remember that paper. I've read so much.
I would point us back to the slide presentation that stated that the Georgia statewide plan supports freshwater treated effluent into estuary for the reasons we've already discussed, and I suspect there is a basis for that support. So maybe that's something we can go back to EPD, figure out exactly what they're using to support that that statement in their plan, and get that out on our website.
Okay. So LCDA has applied for a waste load application letter to EPD for discharging effluent from the Tradeport East facility into North Newport. Where will the discharge location be precisely? If that waste load allocation is granted by EPD, will LCDA seek the MPDES permit, even if the cost is higher than doing so in the Laurel River? And I'm just going to read a follow-up question to that as well. This person is asking if the North Newport River is a proper site to discharge effluent from the facility, and thinking specifically about the 60-year history of international paper, and how that might affect the desirability of the site. So we may not know that yet, but
we can start.
Yeah, Chris, I want to guide you on this question a little bit, because there was the other question about how many wastewater treatment plants are on each one of those rivers. So before he answers that, I'd like you to build on that question a little bit and answer this question. For some of the folks in the room, they may think that if there are multiple treatment plants on a given body of water, that it'd be better just to put all the wastewater treatment plant into that body of water. Can you just talk real quickly about why that may not be the case?
Well, I mean, it's called a waste load allocation for a reason. What you do is you go to EPD, they run their models to say there's a certain amount of loading you can have to any one basin. So they're going to look at it to say is you get your piece, you get your piece. It's basically little pies that you work out in terms of loading. If there are more, it could mean that just limits go down and continue going down. We are already treating to basically as low as we can get at this point. So that's where we get into it. In either basin, there are already existing treatment plants, so EPD looks at both basins that we're looking at and determines what this waste load allocation is. So that's kind of a first step. A question about the location of where it is. At this point, we don't know. We've put a few sites where we have a bend in the river. Again, that's what I would like in terms of looking at an area that's potential for the best mixing. We are looking somewhere in the I-95 area. We don't know if it's upstream or downstream of I-95 at this point. But so what we've done is talk to EPD about it, and they are running models to determine which location would be best. Ideally, again, we'd have a place that's accessible, that we can do the directional drill into the river if possible, but have a way of getting to the river so we can see it. And I think we kind of covered the allocation part at the beginning, the second part of that question.
okay. Next question. We are running out of time, and I still have questions, so there will have to be some follow-up in another form, but we'll do the best we can. All right, how could restored wetlands on the former Union Camp and IP lands within and adjacent to the Tradeport East and the proposed Forum development be used to naturally filter treated wastewater before it reaches the river and estuaries?
The EPD has a memorandum from 2010 that prohibits using natural wetlands. Yes. So we're stuck with a regulatory issue there.
Yeah, so I will say.
Here, Brent. They might be willing.
Yeah, so from a natural wetlands and rehabilitating wetlands, Our firm has been involved in several projects over time in other states. Georgia has not allowed for discharge into those natural wetlands. I don't see that as a bad idea, but in South Carolina, we've done it both on Hilton Head and in the Beaufort, in the Bluffton area. So
We're willing and have already suggested exploring that.
And I will say that EPD was receptive to that idea that we could possibly be a test project, but it will take powers to be to get it done.
Let's see, do the U.S. military systems of water purification systems mimic the proposed water reclamation? And this person is quoting that they understand the military to use the reverse osmosis water purification units.
Just real quick. So it is a similar type of process. It's a membrane process. That reverse osmosis system is a much, we'll call it just a tighter weave of a material than, because she gets mad at me when I start talking in nano, micro, ultra, but it's a tighter weave, but it's the same process. It's just, it takes a lot more pressure to push water through a reverse osmosis system. Reverse osmosis only basically has a water molecule and a hydrogen atom and two hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom are the only things that get through. The MBR process at that ultrafiltration level is taking out 99% of the materials. Where do they do reverse osmosis? We designed a facility in Hilton Head on South Island where they pull from the Cretaceous aquifer, which is well below the Floridan aquifer, 4,800 feet down. So it's not only is it salty, but it's hot. So we have to cool it down. Then we have to actually take the salt out, right?
All right. We got 5 minutes and 3 questions that I know for sure I think I can, well, I know maybe for sure I can ask. All right.
Brooke, or Bryn, is the public aware that they'll have the opportunity to lodge any question or comment that they don't get out in this setting? Okay, all right,
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay, I think these can be answered quickly, everybody. What will the trace chemicals in the treated water do to our ecosystem, specifically algae growth? So, and maybe I can actually ask this one first. Sorry, I should have asked it. What chemical or chemicals will be used to flush pipes out if this is a closed system? So I think these 2 questions are both asking about any trace chemicals, any negative impact on the ecosystem, potential for algae growth. What's the chemical situation?
So yeah, so the primary nutrients that we're concerned about with algae growth are phosphorus and nitrogen. Our plant, as we showed, we ran through them very quickly, but we have to meet very low levels of both.
There's a poster outside.
There's a
that
poster.
info.
Okay, so the posters
Yes.
are out there. So, and it is online. Yes, all this information is there. So from that standpoint, it is lower or equal to what is already in the river. So we are putting in a very clean effluent into the river. From other materials, we've talked about pharmaceuticals and hormones. I mean, things that we are just starting to think about as how are we going to treat these things? There's still no permit levels for them at this point, but the one thing that a membrane plant does is treat them much, much better than other options that don't have that fine physical barrier.
Okay. And we're just gonna, hold on just a second. We got it. Okay, if there are additional questions throughout the rest of the duration of the evening, continue to write down on, if you have a comment card, we will collect them at the end. Okay, so the last question I think I have time for is, how will the system store water to be used for fire suppression? Will there be a tap in? Would trucks need to be modified? Like, how would the fire suppression part of all this work?
Yes, I mean, that's one of the options we've definitely looked at. We do want to be careful with it is a water that has trace amounts of nutrients in there. So in terms of using it like in a separate fire system, may be difficult. That's two separate pipes having to run. You have a water distribution pipe and then a fire system. But one of the things we've talked about is definitely having a water tank that is available for the fire trucks to be able to fill up on the east end. That's been one of the issues we've had, is that fires out on the east end having to go back much farther to get to it. So, I mean, that's one of the options, but we also do want to look at, are there ways that we could run a fire suppression system as like a separate, fire system? How much would that cost? What would be the impacts there? It's feasible. It may be economically hard to do, challenging, yes.
All right. Thank you. Amazingly, we are still on time. Okay. Do we have any more cards in case people have additional thoughts or questions? Okay. And there's a pile somewhere in the middle. Okay. So if y'all have additional questions that you have not already submitted, please continue to write them and be sure you get them to us before you leave. Okay, so what we're going to do now is all these folks are going to shut up, and we're going to hear from folks who signed up to give 2-minute comments, okay? And so I'm going to do my very best. We've got the podium is there, and we've got a clock here, and I'm going to try to make, here, my Coke was, okay. And I'm going to give you a heads up when you got 30 seconds, and when you have 15 seconds, and then when your 2 minutes is up, okay? All right, so I'll try to, after each person goes, I'll try to give you 2 or 3 or 4 folks just so we can kind of get ourselves over to the podium. It'll take us a while to get going. All right, first up is Donald Pacer. Okay, Donald Pacer, followed by Bryce Ladson, followed by Hermina. Hot, is it Hot? Glass? Hill. Okay, Hill. I was like, that is definitely not Glass. Okay, so we'll have Donald and then Bryce and then Hermina. Oh, she got it. Okay. All right. And then Fisher will be up after that. So Donald, Bryce, Fisher. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I've learned a lot tonight, and so have a lot of us here. And I appreciate the presentation.
Excuse me.
But, okay, so we moved. I've been a resident here for about 9 years. And when I moved down here, I came from Lake Norman in North Carolina, up by the Charlotte area. And for 35 years, Duke Energy swore up and down that they had the cleanest water in the lake. And for 35 years, people were dying from thyroid cancer. And it got so bad that 14 of our neighbors in a neighboring neighborhood had thyroid cancer at the same time. So I approach all of this with skepticism. And skepticism's not bad, it's good. Challenge everything, challenge what you can. But at the end of the day, near drinking water is still not good water. And I'm basing this on the nitrates, the PFCs, the phosphorus, the heavy metals, the antibiotics, the hormones, and things like paint thinner, other household ingredients. And you know, when I was 12 years old, my dad gave me a science kit. And boy, I got in a lot of trouble with that thing. In fact, I actually figured out how to make stuff that I shouldn't be making. But the point I'm getting at is, so I look at it from a simple aspect. So let me get 10 gallons of effluent. That's fresh water. Let's put it in an aquarium, and how long would the fish live? That's...
No, how long would the saltwater fish
live? No, I'm talking... So the point I'm making is it still may be the quote-unquote cleanest water there is that can be made. It still has these compounds in them, and what is that going to do to our ecosystem? Thank you so much.
I'm Bryce Ladson. I've been a trial lawyer for 45 years. I'm a resident. I've lived on the Medway and Belfast River for 40 years. Maybe that 45 in the trial practice. Y'all, we all agree on one thing. two things. One, we got to get this right. We can't guess. Number two, we got to follow the science. Here's the problem. This is not the first time this facility has been proposed. The last time the facility was proposed, for 2 years, there was a question of EPD. What have you got to prove the facility is safe? The EPD director resigned, and the study that was produced was heavily criticized. It has been heavily criticized by scientists in the field, and the answer is we need a new study. We cannot make this decision based upon a 2008 study. And also, the references to a 2009 work by EPD never published, y'all. Neither was the 2008 study, never published. The Riverkeeper sought those records. They were not produced. Y'all have a record request from me. They have not been produced. The reason why they haven't been produced, is because they don't exist. All we have is a slideshow presentation. That, my friends, is not evidence. It's nothing we can rely upon. So I cry out, and I know you guys want to do the right thing. Let's get the science right. Let's get the studies done before we do this. Thank you.
All right, so hello, my name is Fisher Zabrak. I'm a 23-year-old second-generation crabber and a United States Coast Guard licensed captain. I grew up on the Isle of Wight since I was born, and I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. So this will affect my life as well as the rest of all my fellow watermen and residents. This wastewater treatment plant carries a huge spotlight for our coastal region. For example, how will this affect our local seafood? For instance, let's take a 5-gallon bucket of this treated wastewater and let's dump it into a public pool. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I'm not going to swim in that pool. My point being that no matter how treated the wastewater is, it still carries the weight of being wastewater. Can you guarantee that the image won't affect my way of life going forward? Secondly, commercial crabbing is the second largest seafood industry other than shrimp, and roughly 10% of the commercial crabbers crab this very river system. In the study that y'all were using the data from back in 2009, by the way, I was 7 years old at the time, it states that the wastewater will flush out in 21 days. I couldn't help but think how even a small spill could make these waters and the animals in it unsafe for us to eat for 21 days. What does that mean for us residents? What does that make all the people that live in the river? Are you going to help us? Because let's face it, it's not a matter of if a spill will happen, it's a matter of when. To quote the Coastal Resources Division, the coastal regions provide a natural recreation and resources that is very vital to the economy of Georgia in these coastal zones. These systems are costly, if not impossible, to reconstruct or rehabilitate once adversely affected. Why risk it when there's other alternative? My hope is that the LCDA protects our unspoiled resources and the citizens in the surrounding area.
Good evening, everyone. I will say this, and let me say, I didn't know I was putting my name on for questions, but it's okay. So we're gonna use the time. I'm actually a native from Anniston, Alabama. And about 20 years ago, there was a study and there was also findings. There was a plant in Alabama called Monsanto. And for years, they poisoned the people of Anniston, Alabama, and those results were devastating. I'm not saying that's what you all are doing, but as the gentleman said, let's make sure that we get the science right, and we get the data right, because as leaders, we have a duty to serve and to protect our people. Thank you.
Time to me. Yeah, okay. Well, you know, we throw curveballs here. That's all. I wanted wanted to bring up a couple more points. First of all, I am excited that the LCDA is actively pursuing the North Newport River. But Ms. Grant made a very good pitch about this clean affluent. It seems to me that the Peacock Creek, which is pretty impaired right now, could benefit from this affluent to dilute it down. So I just wanted to make that comment. I also wanted to ask about what's the possibility on LCDA property to create a spray field? And maybe not pump it all into the North Newport, but let's create a spray field that we can kind of divert off and then balance out throughout the years. That's all I got. Thanks.
You all, on a very positive note, our group, Save the Laurel View River, met with LCDA, and we know that LCDA is actively pursuing the idea of the North Newport as a possible source for this discharge. We support that effort, and we know y'all will follow through on with your work with EPD, and we wish you well on that. We hope that we can all come to a common solution that will save the jewel of the Georgia coast, which is the Laurel View River, and our relatively pristine saltwater estuary, and at the same time, deal with growth that is coming, and we want Liberty County to have that growth, but we want it to be smart growth, and we know you want that too. So let's hope we can work together to find a common solution. Thank you.
Most of you know me as an internist in Richmond Hill. Very few of you know that I spent my undergraduate degree as wildlife biology. And for 2 years, I worked for the University of Georgia. I worked for many of the professors emeritus, and I was in fisheries biology. I'm not an unknown entity to this. I have several publications, both at the University of Georgia and at Savannah River Nuclear Plant. Okay? I put the task to Mark because I know very much about the research with Dr. Eugene Odom, who is the father of ecology. He put University of Georgia on the map. Bottom line is there are no studies that I'm familiar with, and I've done a pretty extensive literature search that shows what happens to a treated freshwater effluent into a pristine saltwater environment. But you know who does? His name is Eugene Odom, and his research was in the 1960s and 1970s. And it showed there's significant impact on biolife when you start screwing around with salinity or flow. Now, you know how much flow there is at low tide? Okay, and that's when the saltwater organisms are the most vulnerable. So there's excellent mixing, and there's nothing wrong with this membrane program that we're working with. It's the state of the art. But I can tell you that if you look at the EPD's failures, when these things screwed up, they're all over the place. A lot of them are in Florida, some of them are in Alabama, some of them are in Georgia, some of them are in South Carolina. And quite frankly, this group has a credibility problem, like my esteemed partner, Bryce Ladson, illuminated. You're not following the science because the science doesn't exist right now. There's been no studies. There are published studies from the University of Georgia and published studies from the University of Florida that delineate all the pollutants that come from this type of treatment facility. Now, most of these treatment facilities are not subject to the vicissitudes that we have here on Hurricane Alley, okay? Because when we lose power, when a power line goes down, when we have a pine tree to knock out a pipe, you are given, if you have a permit, so many days to get it fixed. In the meantime, there's raw sewage going through there. My family has lived on this river for 40 years. I've raised children on it, and I hope to have grandchildren on it. And I don't want turds in the river when my kids are playing in the water.
Read that stuff. My grandfather was part of it.
Okay, and then after Lee will be Diane Hilliard. May I yield to Bryce Letts?
Come on, Bryce.
All right, Bryce. Sorry, just a second, don't start yet. And then Angie Foss, Kevin Hellman, Baltimore, and Louise Baltimore. Y'all are in order. Okay, go ahead, Lee.
All right, I think I share similar concerns with most everybody here for the well-being of this river and system. What I want to encourage is everyone to push this irrigation system that they're talking about. It's going to use more water than they can make. There will be still a demand to put fresh water in irrigation if we can push them to make this work. We won't have water going into the river through these discharges if they can use it all before it's needed to go out of there. So let's push for that idea. Just like we're pushing for this North Newport idea, let's keep the fire to them. Let's make sure that it works the way that they're planning. And if we stick with it, it'll happen that way. We can't let them get ahead of it. If we keep suggesting these good ideas, they'll take them. They're not shutting the door in our face. They're listening to us, and I appreciate that from this board. So let's keep working as a community to make this work for us. And what I'd also like to add is I've done a lot of water testing up and down the rivers, hundreds of miles of Georgia for the EPD. I think Phil can back me up by saying there's a lot of discharges coming out of old facilities on these rivers that are putting raw sewage, dish soap, all kinds of clothes washing systems going straight into the rivers that circle back into the Midway. So we've already got turds in our water, unfortunately. And that's not anything that we want more of, obviously. So we want the best systems that we can to clean this water, and we want to filter it out through the dirt before it ever gets into the river through leaching. So let's keep working with them. Let's keep these ideas pushing forward. I appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. It's really good to see this much passion for the rivers.
Yeah, hi, Angie Foss, Bryan County. Everyone said pretty much what I wanted to say, except for I don't know if the sentiment in the room is the same, but a lot of the companies around here, we see the reports. They have at 7 months out of 12 months, they've been discharging, and EPD's done what?
Nothing.
Nothing. Our faith in the EPD, everybody says, well, the EPD, the EPD, the EPD. I'm not sure we have a lot of faith in the EPD. I mean, they're not doing their job when I hear, okay, we're going to test, we're going to monitor daily, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we're sending it to who? The EPD. And they're doing what? Nothing. So would Liberty County take the time to make sure something's done if they see that this company is still discharging 8 months out of 12? Because most of these corporations that are discharging everything that they're not supposed to do, they're getting a little slap on the hand, you know? $100,000 fine's nothing to them. I mean, it's a lot to us. It's nothing to these big corporations. They don't care. What the heck? Some of these big companies, no names I'll mention, but when their alarms go off, they know what to throw out to make these alarms not go off. They know what they're putting in the river. They do it anyway, and the EPD is letting them get away with it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Bryn, go right ahead.
All of these questions that have been submitted, we will work with our project team to get answers to them and then publish those answers. Give us time because sometimes it takes work, and they don't all work just for us. They work for a lot of other things, doing a lot of other projects. But we will collect these questions. We will build out another frequently asked questions document. We will distribute that. And in fact, if you can, leave us your email addresses so that we can communicate with you directly. Some of you have emailed us, so we have those email addresses. Here you go.
Thank you. If you can give us a minute. Yeah.
One quick note, anyone with additional comments or questions or concerns, there's a court report.
In the back, please. Can we get your attention? Please, please. Can you get your attention now? We understand you need to leave, but do it quietly without the mouth. Go ahead.
For anyone with additional comments, questions, or concerns who didn't have an opportunity to express themselves, there's a court reporter at the end of the hallway, and she'll be happy to take down whatever notes you'd like to offer. And we welcome them.
Okay, and thank you. You've been a very good audience. I think you've asked questions that were on your heart, and that's what we came to hear. And all these questions will be taken into consideration, and we'll continue to look into this. Thank you once again, and thank you for your civility. You've been a great audience. We might keep you for all the hearings. Yeah. Thank you very much, and you all have a good night.